So it is my true pleasure today to give a warm welcome to this session here today at the Prime Global Forum, the Meet the Editors session. This is the session we started last year also, and we had a great success, I would say. We had a lot of people, you watching this, and we were asked to make sure that we have a similar session this year again. So this is it. And I'm very pleased to welcome also the five professors that I've invited here, and I'll introduce them in a moment, that I've invited to engage with me and talk about some future prospects, and also talk more generally about what is going on the scene of responsible management research, and how do we improve that research also into the future. It is also my true pleasure here today to announce a partnership between Prime and Journal of Business Ethics and Business and Society. So with these two journals, we are going to travel the world, you could say, to offer a series of professional paper development to Prime chapters. And this would be very exciting. It is something we've been talking with the chapter chairs around the world for a while. And there is a huge interest in on the ground, you could say, in the different regions of Prime, to actually have such a series where we will engage with a group of scholars locally in the particular schools around the world, but also with the support of these two excellent journals. They are both, as you will know, internationally recognized journals. They publish a lot of the kind of research that we in the community of Prime are very interested in. It is also two journals who have a lot of experience with research from different parts of the world, and it is two journals who are also interested in expanding this research. So I'm very pleased to announce this partnership here today. And with me today, I'm also very pleased to say that I've got the editors from the journals here with me. So that is a true privilege. Frank de Backer, Kathy Rabin, you co-editors of Business and Society. Frank, professor at IESCG School of Management, Kathy Rabin, professor at Marquette University, to have you with me here today to talk about Business and Society Journal and some of your ambitions for this journal. With me here today, I also have the two co-editors-in-chief, Michelle Greenwood, professor at Monash University, and Ghazi Islam, professor Grenoble École de Management, with me here today as well, from Journal of Business Ethics. Also here with me today, I have a former editor of Business and Society, namely Professor Andrew Crane, University of Bath School of Management. So these five and highly experienced editors, former editor, are going to talk a bit about the two journals, but also more generally our research on responsible management and sustainable development in a management school context. So I'm pleased to hand over to you first, Frank, and to talk a little bit about your thinking, your reflections, and some of your ambitions for Business and Society. Over to you, Frank.
Thank you very much, Mette. And first of all, thank you very much for organizing this event and for having us here at this important event. I'm looking forward to have some further exchange afterwards through the chat or in other means. We decided to, I think something went wrong here with this share slide. Now you should be able to see my slides. Do you? Good, excellent. We decided that I would give a quick rundown on Business and Society, a quick general overview, and then after me, my colleague Kathy Rabin will speak a bit more about our ambitions towards responsible business and our developmental business. Okay, Business and Society is a journal that has been around for quite a while. We were established in the 1960s already, and or in 1960, and we aim to be a leading peer-reviewed outlet for scholarly work, as we always say, dealing with work, dealing with topics at the intersection of business and society. And that means that we publish work that develops, tests, refines theory, that enhance our understanding of exactly that area, the intersection of business and society. The scope of the journal is broad, but we always look at papers that really focus on this combination of aspects. And that means that when we combine societal impact and business issues, we talk about themes such as diverse as business and governance, business ethics, business government relations, CSR, sustainability, and so on. I've listed an entire row here. I'm not going to read all of them, but you can definitely check the slides. What's important for our journal, what's important in guiding us as editors, is our set of values and commitments. Things we think are important in steering the journal, in developing its direction, and that's four main elements that play an important role. First and foremost, we want to be developmental and supportive, which means, on the one hand, that we want to be open to a broad variety of submissions, a broad variety of types of research, and that we want to be supportive. Not all the work that gets submitted gets sent out to review. Quite a bit gets rejected, but if we just reject work, then at least we want to explain in more detail why this work at the moment would not yet meet the requirements that we use. Yet, at the same time, we also find it important to maintain high standards of quality and rigor, and to be timely. We try to be timely in our decisions, not to have manuscripts waiting for a very long time, but try and process them at a decent speed. Of course, there's some variation across these. And in the meantime, maintain good standards of quality and rigor. In all this, what we find very important is to be approachable, to be responsive. So you can reach out to us if you are a prospective author, if you have an idea for a special issue. I'll say a bit more about that in a minute. Do reach out, do contact us through our editorial office or through our social media, or by sending an email to one of the co-editors directly, and we're very happy to discuss with you to see what options there are. And an important final element of our values and commitments is impact and influence. We are committed to making an impact beyond publication, beyond journal rankings, and we want to also have an impact on education, on practice, on policy. And to that end, we have developed several new initiatives over the last couple of years to engage some more with these debates. Of course, being a solid, rigorous, quality journal is highly important, and that's important for our entire field and for the discussion on responsible business. But we also want to try and reach out beyond that scholarly community and to see how we can link more with practice. And that's also why it's important to be in an event like this. What we do to, well, marketing and development on this slide, what do we do to promote the journal, to bring it a bit further under the attention beyond the academic scope that's and the academics that already know about? Well, we have all sorts of meet the editor sessions. Here I've listed a few that we recently took part in for the academics amongst you. Just to give you a clue, we engage in several manuscript development workshops internationally at different audiences, and we'll speak a bit more about the new initiative in that respect shortly. We have a series of so-called editors' insights, which are available through our website in open access for anyone who's interested in learning a bit more about the views of the editors on what it takes to submit a good quality paper to a journal like Business and Society. What kind of tips and tricks are there? What kinds of ideas are important when you think about making a theoretical contribution or about publishing interdisciplinary work? Well, you will find some guidance in that set of editorials, and anyone can access that freely on the website. We have some awards to promote the best work, the best paper, the best reviewers, and so on. And we're very active on social media, and we have some new initiatives. I'll say a bit more on that. This new feature that we just started is so-called Business Society Commentary. And commentary is a new format. It's not an academic article, it's not a peer-reviewed article, but they are what they are, commentaries. They are the short op-ed style contributions on pressing business and society themes. And the first series that we published, initially now online first, is a series of viewpoints on this notion of impact. How can we think about the impact of scholarly work, of academic work? What does it mean to have impact as a scholar? How can you try and get more impact. All these different viewpoints from a range of different authors, some of them even present here in the meeting today, is to be found in that series. These are published quite rapidly, and they are also available in open access on our website and on our blog. Here are just a few examples of these first commentaries and on some tweets that we put out. The final thing that I mentioned before I hand over to Kathy for the sake of time is special issues. If there is one additional way in which you can put new issues on the agenda or try and gather different viewpoints, different studies, different ideas together, then it could be through a special issue. And we run several special issues per year. People can make proposals twice a year. We combine or we compare them, and they are assessed in competition, and we select a few, and with those we are going to work and then put out a special issue, usually supplemented with a workshop, a paper development workshop, and a trajectory of developing a device special issue. At the moment, we have a few two just closed earlier this week, so that's 5 that just closed, but they are on the contributions of business to the refugee crisis, COVID-19, and business society scholarship. There's a new one coming up on stakeholder engagement, and we just accepted one on the social challenges for business in the age of populism. So you see a broad variety of topics, all relating to business and society. Before handing over to Kathy, just one slide to perhaps make a photo of or keep in mind all the different channels through which you can find output. And I especially would like to mention our blog, businessandsociety.org, where you find very short summaries, easy accessible on a lot of work that is being published in Business and Society. And then I hand over to Kathy and stop sharing my slides. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. I'm just going to say a few words and mostly wanted to focus on our historical emphasis on being developmental and supportive. And Frank mentioned a little bit already what that means to the journal. And I was just going to elaborate a little bit on that as well. As one, we have felt as the co-editors before us that providing constructive feedback with the authors is very important. To imagine that we're having a conversation, that the author is sitting in front of us and trying to use that tone in terms of our reviews. And I think that's been very important. And Frank also mentioned that we have done Meet the Editors workshops. We've also participated in doctoral consortiums, and I think that's been really helpful in terms of giving more tips and advice about how to get papers published, and also the resources that are available, not just in our journal, but in other journals that authors can access. And I think none of us are born as perfect writers. And so I think our goal is to provide insights about how to become better writers and what that involves. And another thing that I guess we're also going to hopefully emphasize more is how to become a good reviewer. And that is something that we're hoping to work on in future conferences too, because it's a good way to learn about writing, see what other reviewers write. And it's a good way to become familiar with other types of articles, what's getting published and topics and things like that. And just to reiterate, we think business and society topics are going to only become increasingly important. And so we want to have future researchers be able to be successful in the journal. And that's very important to us. And then the other thing that we've tried to do is focus on our end in terms of reviewers to also help them be more developmental. So we've developed reviewer guidelines. We've worked with the ERB board members and our associate editors. We've had a couple workshops talking about what do you think is developmental, what are some good examples of developmental advice. So it continues to be a very big part of our conversation at the journal. And so that's why one reason we're very, very excited about this Prime World Tour, because we can continue to focus on this mission and hopefully diversify the types of papers that are submitted to our journal and other business and society outlets, as well as the type of authors. So that's all I wanted to add.
No, thank you so much, Frank and Kathy, for this, taking us through business and society. Some of the, you could say, some of the ambitions of the journal, and also some of the newer sections that you have developed in the journal. And I really appreciate also Kathy, you're pointing out the developmental and supportive aspects that you highly focus on in some of your work here also. So thank you so much to business and society. Now over to you, Michelle, and looking forward to hear more about Journal of Business Ethics. I've followed that journal also for many, many years, and also pleased to see the wonderful development for Journal of Business Ethics. So please, over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Metta, and thank you very much for having us here today. It's really an exciting opportunity to speak about the journal and speak about the journal to perhaps people who are less familiar with it. I also want to thank Frank and Kathy. I learned more about business and society that I didn't know in the past, so it was really an interesting presentation. So let me just share my screen for a minute, and if I can have head nods to know that I'm. Can you see that? Terrific. Okay, so as Metta has mentioned already, I'm here today with Ghazi Islam, my co-editor-in-chief, and I've been with the journal now for coming up to 5 years now, since 2016. I came in with Ed Freeman as the second only editor-in-chief of the journal, because the journal had been held for 30 years before that by Alex Mikolos, who founded the journal. And I'm very excited that Ghazi has joined me this year and brings a really fantastic opening and fresh view to the future. And so when I've spoken a little bit about the journal generally, I'm actually going to pass over to Ghazi to see if he wants to say a few words about the directions that we're heading in. I mentioned Alex Mikolos founding the journal, and from the very outset, his description of the aim of the journal is something that we hold dear. From its inception, this journal has aimed to improve the human condition by providing a public forum for discussion and debate of ethical issues related to business. And I think this really says everything, and our focus is very clearly on ethics as central, though we interpret that very broadly, and business also we interpret very broadly. I'd like to just talk about the characteristics of the journal today rather than specific statistics or nitty-gritty practices. And one of the first characteristics of our journal is that it is big, and it has a reputation for being big, and we admit, yes, this journal is big. We get over 3,000 submissions per year. Well, we certainly did last year. We're hoping this year that it'll actually be a bit lower. We have 33 sections of the journal. I'll introduce you to the different sections. We publish over 300 papers per year in 28 issues. So that is obviously even more than one issue per month. But also we have a very broad range and of deep expertise amongst specialist editors who take on these 33 different sections. We have 58 editors across 15 countries. So the journal is big, but also it is very broad. So if you look at the particular scopes statement of the journal, you'll see that we publish original articles from a wide variety of methodological and disciplinary perspectives. This is very important to us. And again, when you look at the sections, you'll see this come through. Concerning ethical issues related to business. And of course, we are concerned that these that the work that we publish brings something new, unique discourse to the field. Here is the long list of sections at the moment at the journal, and I say at the moment because we seem to be developing a new section almost every month or two. We've just recently added to our list of sections environment and business ethics, and I'll come back to this section at the end of my presentation. But you can see from the range of sections that we have papers that may look at practice and may do a deep dive into a particular case and not be very theory heavy. Or we may have a paper that goes to the philosophy section that looks at, Aristotle and virtue ethics. We may have a paper that goes into economics that invokes feminist economic theory. Or we may have a paper that looks at corporate social reporting from a quantitative point of view. So this very broad range of sections attracts a very broad range of not just within different discipline research, but also interdisciplinary research. In addition to being big and broad, we also think that we're fairly bold in our outlook and not dissimilar to the value statements that business and society have. We are also very driven by our principles that include, at number one, respect for author and author voice, respect for our reviewers. And we are very concerned to enhance the ability of our section editors to not just work independently because they're all experts in their field, but to work together as a team. This allows us to enhance the pluralist intellectual traditions of the journal, which go long and deep. We use a variety of different formats to try and inspire conversations that we hope will have an impact and make a difference to the world. We, of course, are concerned about the integrity of the publication process from submission through to publication. And lastly, and most relevant today, is that we are very committed to diversifying the scholarship that we publish in the journal. And by diversification, we mean in broadest terms, geography, race, ethnicity, gender, and any other mode of being. So to give you a little bit of a sample for this, I spoke about the more recent sections that we have developed at the journal. And last year, we brought on a new section on feminisms and business ethics. Very excited that Charlotte Karam from the American University of Beirut has taken on this section. And one of the first papers that was published under this particular umbrella was an excellent paper that I recommend if you are interested in the sort of diverse scholarship that we get involved with on the impact of Islamic feminism. And another little sampler for you is our new environment and business ethics section. Stefan Bohm, who has taken on this new section, has launched the section on May the 28th, and there is a video available which I can provide a link for you. If you're interested, please contact me. And this is another representation of the sort of work that we're hoping to engage much more in the future. And actually on that note, it's, I think, a good time for me to stop sharing my slides and to pass over to Gazi, who is wanting to say, I think, a few more words about the future for directions that we're heading in.
Thank you, Michelle, and thank you everyone for being here. I'm very happy to be a part of this and to engage in this discussion. So yeah, I'll just say a couple of words about some of the new initiatives and some of the directions we're going. So Michelle had emphasized the plurality of sections and the interdisciplinary nature of the journal. And I want to reemphasize that that's something that's really at the core of who we are at JBE, the attempt to bring in diversity at the level of the editorial board, at the level of the authorship, and at the level of the disciplinary discussions. So she mentioned the new environmental section, which is our newest section, but I could also point to several of the newer sections which attempt to create platforms for discussions which we know are going to become increasingly important in the future. We talk, for example, the global issues section, the feminism section, and the technology section are particularly places I might point to, among others, of course, that are going to increase the interdisciplinary nature of this discussion. Also, we should note that our practice session creates a platform for having discussions that are more linked to things like the impact agenda, to focused case studies of, positive or negative aspects of business ethics and the relation between business and society. So those initiatives are really meant to reconnect with many of the latest important issues that are happening For kind of further information on our larger philosophy of that, you might want to look at our most recent editorial essay, which has come out in the first issue of the February edition, where we talk about reconnecting with the social. So it's really this idea of having a link with the social in terms of the social embeddedness of ethics, the link with social change, grand challenges type of themes, where we really kind of lay out that vision. Although some of these themes might come out in the question and answer session, so I won't go on longer about them, but we are planning a whole range of activities that are oriented toward increasing that plurality and diversification, including outreach activities, development workshops, which will be online, and otherwise social media events. We also, it's worth saying, have a new initiative with Scott Taylor, who is our developmental editor. And by developmental editor, this is a way to try to increase diversity in the journal by actually having a possibility of working through highly promising projects which might have difficulties in terms of language or framing. So we're very interested in the language-oriented complications that come from that diversification and ways to try to include more voices, giving help in terms of things like English language, and also potentially, and this is something which is just beginning, to try to think about ways we could possibly integrate non-English language resources in the journal, and editorially, what are our abilities to do that, and how can we sort of push those forward to increase the kind of voices that we can represent. So those are just a taste of some of the things that we have on store, and we look forward to more discussion.
Thank you so much, Michelle and Gazi, for this introduction to Journal of Business Ethics and for pointing out the ethical dimension that you highly value, the interdisciplinarity, and also the ambition and what you are doing already to include more voices. And this is, of course, something that we are very interested in from the Prime community perspective. So I think now it is sort of very clear, even more clear for me than when we started discussion about this beautiful partnership that we have engaged in. And I think it's very clear now also for the audience today that these two journals are the two journals that are highly relevant and for a partnership with Prime, with the ambitions that you have presented here today, with the broad readership, the broad authorship that you have already, and the general sort of, you could say, mindset and the issues, the topics that you invite and you call for in your two papers. So I'm very happy for that. Before I invite the four of you for a final comment on our partnership, it is my true pleasure to introduce you, Andrew Crane, here with us today. And you have a long-standing, and we all know your research over many, many years in the area, in the broad area of responsible management and sustainable development. And it's my true pleasure to welcome you here today, and also as a former editor, of course, for Business and Society, and all the other things that you have engaged in. But I've sort of invited you to talk a little bit about where do we come from, where are we going, where should we be going, and how do we get there? So over to you, Andrew.
All right, thanks so much, Meta. It's my real pleasure to be here. And what a great conversation. We've already heard from the journals about some amazing things that are going on, which is really heartwarming to hear. And I think, as you said, I've been involved in this field for quite a long time now, as you said, for many, many years, making me feel old here at Meta. But I started 25 years ago or more in this field. And so in terms of the question of where have we come from, obviously the field started long before me. I mean, even the two journals that we just heard from started in 1960, Business and Society, 1981, Journal of Business Ethics. So these journals have been around a long time. The field has been around a long time. But when I started, and when some of the others on the panel here started 20, 30 years ago, we were a very small group of enthusiasts doing research in this area. It's so different to how things are now, but I think in those days, I probably knew nearly everyone that was doing research in this area. In the UK, I remember there were 2 full professors in business ethics, business and society, when I started my PhD. Now there's more than that in individual institutions, never mind in whole countries. Things have changed very, very rapidly in that sense. And the topic of responsible management, responsible business has really moved from the margins to the mainstream now. The change over that 25 years has been fundamental. And that's not just, we've heard from specialist journals like JBE and Business and Society here, but if we also look at the mainstream management journals are now publishing so much more work in Business and Society on responsible management. And these are the papers that often get most read and most cited. These are not just some weird pieces that get published every now and then in these journals. If you look at Academy of Management Review, Academy of Management Journal, Journal of Management Studies, whatever journals you want to look at, many of their top articles are articles that are in our space. So I think in terms of scholarship in this area, things have really changed, and we've really moved into the kind of mainstream of research in this space. There's a lot more of us. I don't know hardly anybody in our field anymore. I still know perhaps the original kind of few hundred people that I've known for many, many years, but there are thousands and thousands of people doing research in this space now, which is wonderful to see. And you're constantly discovering new scholars, new ideas, new things going on, which I think is just wonderful to see. And we're covering new topics all the time. They really are ever expanding in the range of topics. And you've seen some of that with the special issues and the new sections that the two journals have mentioned a little bit. So where are we going then? I think things have really shifted in terms of where we've come from and where are we going? Well, I think you've heard some things in terms of the initiatives of the journals. One thing is certainly an increasing theoretical and methodological rigor in our research, right? It's not just enough to sell our papers on, oh, isn't this interesting? I'm doing something on corporate social responsibility. There are so many people doing research in this area. We have to do really good work to get it published and to get it noticed. And these journals and others have been really invested. And one of the things we're doing with the world tour that you were talking about, Meta, is really trying to help to advance some of our skills in doing rigorous and highly credible research in this space. Because the expectations are getting higher all the time in terms of publication. So we've got that kind of increasing rigor is happening. There's clearly, in terms of where we're going, there's this growing community of international authors and readers in this space, right, which is growing exponentially as more people get brought into both the English language kind of publishing and research space here, as well as the various kind of international language communities as well. There are so many people in this space, and so our community is expanding, and it's becoming more fragmented and more perhaps difficult to even know what's going on across our discipline. But what we're also seeing is that many more people, not just specialists in business and society, are doing research in this area. So specialists in strategy, in entrepreneurship, in human resource management, in finance, whatever, in international business, they're doing work also in this space. And so the amount of people and the amount of research that's happening is just really, really growing at a fairly exponential rate. And that's bringing new voices, new people, new ways of seeing, new ways of understanding our discipline, which I think is a very positive experience. The other thing I think that in terms of where we're going that you've seen from the journals talking about it is really think about different ways of reaching out to different communities with our research. If the ambition of the Journal of Business Ethics was to improve the human condition, as Alex Mikolos said, how successful have we been as business and society researchers of actually improving the human condition through our research? And I think, I would say for myself, after my 25 years of research, have I really changed the world for the better as a result of that? It can be quite hard to determine. So I think what we're increasingly trying to do in our field with our research is to make those links more direct. How can we get our research out there to different audiences in a way that makes it accessible and makes it usable in ways that it can have a more direct effect on improving the human condition, on making people's lives better and improving the environment. And you'll see that with kind of different ways in which the journals are reaching out now, whether through social media, different forms of publications like the blogs and the commentaries, just trying to get research that's accessible and in a kind of voice that can speak to people in a better way that makes it more impactful. So I think we've got our work cut out, really. We've got so many big global challenges facing us. We've got all these thousands of people doing work in this area. But I think where one of the big challenges lies is that as we're increasingly getting more focus and attention on methodological and theoretical rigor, does that pull us away from the very real and important problems that we're trying to deal with in terms of solving problems in the world? And where we go in the future, which was your last question, is how do we get these things aligned and brought together, I think is one of the big questions that I think we face as a discipline. So we need to improve our skills, we need to stay at the vanguard, we need to really work more with practitioners in terms of deciding what kind of questions we want to answer so that we can combine our rigor with that practical impact in kind of more useful ways. And then just and what that means, and I think this is a really crucial one, is that, okay, if we're trying to have more impact with our work, how do we also change the metrics that are used to assess us as researchers or as universities or as schools of business and management? If all the metrics are about, well, how many of the very top tier journals have we published in, which require you to have such a high level of theoretical abstraction that it becomes very difficult to make a practical impact, maybe those metrics are not the best metrics. Or if they're all about how well do we enable our MBA students to earn a higher salary at the end of it, these are not the best metrics for having a meaningful impact on the problems that we care about. And so if there are any deans in the audience or anybody that has influence on the metrics by which we are evaluating ourselves, we clearly need to start reshaping some of those things as well to make this alignment between theoretical and empirical rigor and practical impact more relevant as we go forward.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for these words and for hitting right in the heart, I would say, of what we actually do also in the Prime community and what we're working on, and also for bringing in that ecosystem that you are alluding to here with your last comment about the metrics and the need to redefine those metrics carefully to advance the impact that we would like to have on the world. Thank you so much for this. As always, when you are in good company, time flies, and we only have a few minutes left. So I will just very briefly introduce some of the things that the five of us have agreed on in a concept note of the Prime World Tour for the Professional Research Paper Development Program that we are launching here today, and which I next week will be discussing with the broader Prime community. And the basic idea here with the Prime World Tour for Professional Research Paper Development is to support early and mid-career scholars in advancing work into publications based on relevant and timely research insights from all continents. And I think all five of you alluded exactly to that the sort of ambition to invite more voices into the debate. And the Prime World Tour also has a more general ambition of supporting the professionalization of the scholarly field of responsible management research by advancing the pipeline of relevant and timely insights from all continents of the world. So what we will do here in the partnership with Prime and Journal of Business Ethics and Business and Society is that we will have a small team of editors from the two journals who will travel with us and provide developmental advice of work from senior scholars and from reviewers, from editors from these two journals. The ambition is to advance empirical and conceptual work from regions of the world where publications of responsible management research are so far relatively limited, but where there is a huge potential to increase. And what we also have an ambition of is to offer guidance on topics related to the research process upon request by individual Prime chapters, such as, for example, how to develop a good research question, how to design a research article, and how to produce and respond to reviews that you have also already now said that you are already working with in these two journals. So I'm very proud, very pleased that we have engaged in this agreement and in this wonderful partnership, and I will be looking much forward to setting this into action in the very near future. So can I just invite the five of you, starting with you, Frank, just to give just a few, 2 sentences on your sort of ambitions, your thinking, your hope for this the Prime World Tour in partnership with Business and Society and Journal of Business Ethics. Please, Frank.
Thank you. Yes, I'm very much looking forward to seeing the different initiatives that we're going to develop under this new World Tour framework. I think discussing with people from a wide variety of backgrounds, geographically, but also in terms of different domains, really is important for our field, as Andrew was already alluding to in this conversation. And I think doing that in collaboration with, or in a collaboration between Prime and some of the leading journals in our field is a good way to step forward.
Thank you so much, Frank. Thank you for this, for these words. Kathy.
Yeah, I think it's a very exciting opportunity, and I think it's a way for all of us, as Andy said, to have a better and bigger societal impact that we haven't been able to maybe accomplish as much as we would like separately. So I think this joint effort will be, hopefully productive. And I think it's also going to be exciting to meet scholars from different parts of the world and learn from them as well.
Thank you so much for these words, Kathy. And Michelle, please.
Well, I think I mentioned earlier that we have 58 editors from 15 different countries, and these people are really active scholars in their own right, as well as having editorial expertise in their particular areas. And what we would love to see is the possibility that we meet with new people for them to potentially become editors or become involved with the journal, but also that our editors can get engaged in the various aspects, whether that's by topic or by geography, that open up to us through this UN PRME endeavour that we're involved with here. So this connection between our great team of diverse editors and the scholars who would like to become more involved in the journal, and for us this provides a perfect opportunity to make these connections.
Oh, thank you so much, Michelle, for this and also for pointing out sort of the potential for growing and inviting new voices into the journal. Actually, Gassi, over to you.
Yes, thank you. Just to reinforce that point, I think one of the biggest possibilities and potentials for this initiative is to actually expand the field of business ethics and business and society by including topics that maybe weren't on our radar before because we'd had more of a limited platform. So by expanding this, not only are we bringing the values and the mission of Journal of Business Ethics to a wider audience, but we're also actually transforming that mission. So hopefully that will feed back into our academic and scholarly activities.
Thank you so much for this, Cassie. So thank you so much to the two journals for, engaging in this wonderful partnership. I'm very thrilled. I'm very excited about this opportunity. It's just going to be fabulous. And of course, Andrew, you have actually volunteered, or maybe I have asked you a few times if you would like to lead this world tour, and you have said that you would be happy to chair a group of people from the two journals who will help us develop this Prime World Tour with the two journals.
Yeah, thanks, Mitch. I mean, for me, it's a very exciting initiative, and I think that I've run these kind of professional development workshops, paper development workshops in many countries, and many of us have been involved in these. And I think that the key thing is we can all learn from these things at any stage in our career as well, right? We particularly target them at early career scholars, but we can all learn things by getting targeted, direct feedback from experts in our field. None of us know all the answers, and we can all benefit from getting good feedback.
Thank you so much. And on that note, I will conclude. I'm super excited about this. It's going to be fabulous. Thank you so much to all five of you and to the two journals behind you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mette.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.